Well, hey there team, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to a bit more Hardspace Shipbreaker. So let's take an assessment of this current situation. Having a look here, we're, what's that, about 9 million shy of cert for money. So probably 2 money runs if we really put into it. And then it looks like we're about 16 work orders shy. So, you know, that's, again, that's 2 work order runs. So we're very, very, very close. How's our equipment looking? All pretty good there. So what I might try and do and see is is there a heavy? There is not a heavy, or a hard, or whatever you want to call it. No, I think we'll get more value if we do one of these in its stead. Big Constellation, what a thoughtful name indeed. It's big. So we're going to do this, and we're going to try and strip this thing out for money, and then we'll check back and see if maybe it's cycled in a hard. Let's get a utility key. I forgot to invert the controls this time. You know, I've been good with it. Oh my god. Hang on. Much better. Bug's still there though. Be good if they fix that. Alright. And then whoever pointed out that if you wind in like this, when you press the grapple, don't be holding any particular directions. It works in a straight line. Thank you. Because that was exactly the problem that I was missing out there. Okay.
Your log pressure level's dropping.
You know what? Let's cycle. Well, yeah. Okay, we can cycle it because there's no air in there.
Your log pressure level's dropping.
So we're just going to do money this particular one. The hardcore series will be inbound shortly. How's that looking? Oh, nice. I want to hit Cert 10 on this before I put that up, but then I'll start a parallel series. This series won't be abandoned. This will keep going, don't worry. And this will be a little bit more just grinding our way to clear the debt sort of thing, you know? See how that progress goes. It's starting, given that we've gotten quite good at our sort of debt reduction techniques, and we've also offset a lot of costs with our buying specific equipment. Who knows how quick it's going to be? It is speeding up. But, you know, the devs might... Well, they will add more content at some point. I don't really know when, though. I haven't reached out to them or anything. Maybe I should. I don't think it's really public knowledge how far off they are, say, adding a new hull or any significant gameplay changes. They did, I think just today, patch in the ZEN mode. I guess you could call that significant. Just because it doesn't affect me doesn't mean it's not a big deal. But for those guys that don't want timers, they don't want oxygen ticking down, there is a mode for them, you know? So I guess, look, you know what? It is a good thing. Does it hurt the core gameplay experience? Absolutely not. Does it include more players with more options? Yes. So is that not the only thing that matters? And my answer is 100% yes. That's all that really matters. More people can enjoy this game. I mean, it sort of does brush up against my usual sort of position on developer intent. And we've come back, obviously, you know, I circle around on my position on mods and the modding community. I think it's such a great tool, but I just don't like people going, nah, I can make the game better if I add this or do that. You know, at a certain point, they're just building cheats into the system. They're enabling their own vision of someone else's art form. And I find that to be a bit of a slippery slope, you know? You can't walk in and say, oh, the Mona Lisa would be better if we changed this, that, and the other, you know? I'm not necessarily comparing games to high art, but that's the sort of general concept that I follow on. It's like, you go in and look at Mona Lisa and you can go, oh, this painting's good, or this painting's shit, but that's it. That's you know, make your decision, work it out, and walk on. As opposed to, you know what, I don't like this, and I'm gonna change it. But this is a function of our modern society, where everyone gets what they want. And I kind of... You know, call me a bit curmudgeon-y, but I miss the older concept of, hey, here's a game, here's a package. It's not perfect, but this is how it is. This is what we wanted to do, and this is what we could do with our time. And the consumer should just go, yep, cool, had a cool experience. Good things here, bad things there, moving on. Yeah, I prefer that. The respect for developers' intent. So that's, you know, and this rant comes up semi-regularly here on my channel, that I have this dissenting opinion when it comes to the modding community. But like I said, I am swayed. I understand that there are some exceptions to the rule. For example, there are games built from the ground up to be modded. That's different. That's a little bit meta. Space Engineers, and that's a good example. Even Minecraft to a point. You know, where like the intent from the developers is to mod. But broadly speaking, that's not what the idea is. They have a game, they have a vision, they execute on that vision, and then I kind of find it, to be honest, a little bit disrespectful to just go, oh, I want to change it, I want to add new modes or modify it or whatever, because it's not even that I know better, but it's because I think I'd rather this change. It's like, no, the developer did that on purpose. But anyway, it's not supposed to turn into a whole rant. I was just getting a little bit sidetracked. At the end of the day, I suppose as long as everyone's happy. The true danger of that sort of behavior, though, where you just... Like, this whole rant started with me going on about the sort of Zen mode being added. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad. Good for that. It means more success and more exposure for this game. There are people that I know were not playing this game because they found it too stressful. I mean, I'm not going to go into the character of the person or anything like that. But I do also believe that some games, not all games are meant for you, you know? If you find a game too stressful, I think there is a fair argument to be made that maybe just don't play it, as opposed to get the developers to change it so that you can play it. Do we follow? You know, some games you do play and some games you don't. But anyway, I'm just glad that more people will get to play this, but that's sort of the greater theory. That you generally have this idea that if the game doesn't suit me, instead of just respectfully accepting that, it's like, well, no, I want them to change it to suit me. You know, I don't know, maybe the older boomer types that follow the channel will understand what I'm saying, because I feel like that is an older generation mindset. The modern mindset is, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, but it is very much, I want to bend everything to suit me. And my main problem at that, it's not that I'm necessarily going after it and saying that it's impetulant. That's not my main concern. My main problem is that this is how you end up with homogenized content. This is how you destroy creativity and individuality. So if you go and add a mode to a game, and then you go, oh, that's great, that should be in every game, and then you add it to every single game has the hypothetical mode, then you're sort of approaching a point where it's like, well, what even makes the games unique? Or eventually, hypothetically, if you follow that thread, they will all be identical one day. And that just doesn't really suit me. But I guess that's more of a thought, a think piece than actual fact. Is it ever going to get to that place? I don't know. But I feel like protecting the sanctity of the developer's intent is kind of paramount. And I don't find the art comparison terribly poor. You know, you have to always defend it when people go, oh, are you calling video games art? And you have to sort of say, well, no, not really, you know, so you don't sound like you're up your own ass. But, like, do we find it acceptable to go around changing art because we don't like how it looks, because we think it could do better? Like, I thought that was sort of an established, no, you don't do that ever, and I'm not going to get into current events too much, but this iconoclast behavior of tearing down bloody statues and all this sort of shit because people want to change it strikes me as that's almost a similar modern mindset of just changing everything around you to suit you, as opposed to just appreciating and going, you know what? Maybe things are just a bit different. Anyway, that's turning into a huge rant, and I don't want to get into the modern stuff. I really don't. So yeah, but I think sometimes it's good to actually unpack both sides of it. Like, I can be happy that they've introduced the Zen mode for the guys that just want a more casual experience and don't want to be stressed out, you know? But on the same side, I can also warn against the dangers of giving players everything that they want, because if you do that, then you'll end up with this standardized, every single game does every single thing the same, and then unique sort of expression falls by the wayside. So I think there's two sides to the argument. But it's difficult. It can be difficult to have that conversation with some people, because the other side of it would be, say you're vehemently like, oh, the Zen mode should be in it for me because I'm too stressed to play the game. And I would consider, like, have you considered that the game is not actually for you? You know what I mean? There are a million games. Why does this one actually have to conform to your criterion for fun? Do you sort of, you know, and I wonder, because I think the older generation response generally would be, that's a fair point, I hear what you're saying, and yeah, I'll just not play it. But I feel like the more modern conceit is, no, I want this game and I want it now, and I want it to bend to what I want. I don't like the way it came out originally. They need to change it so it suits me. Anyway, it's just food for thought, team. I'm not going after anyone or trying to be antagonistic. But it makes me feel like an old man, because I always looked at my parents and you'd go, geez, what an old bag of shit. You know, stuck in their old ways. But this is one of the things that I feel like is a big separation for, say, me and mine and the current generation. I don't understand this need to bend everything to suit you personally. And there's no other way to put it. It is this modern idea. It wasn't really around in my previous generation. Anyway, just a thought, guys. Engage with me. See what I'd be curious what you think on all of this.
Account credit applied.
Bearing in mind, I bear no ill will or any such stuff. I just find it very fascinating.
Salvage deposit accepted.
I guess to expand on it a tiny bit more, because right now, like, I'm a huge indie game, advocate, right? There's more indie games than me, the guy who professionally plays indie games every single day. Like, especially, depends on what season we're in and what my channel's doing. But, there are times where I'm playing multiple brand new games every single day, non-stop, around the clock, all year, right? And I can't get through them all. So, like, it is the greatest time now to go looking for a game that fits everything that you personally love. You know what like, hypothetically, that game exists for every man and woman that covers all your criteria. So it's strange to me that in a world where that is the actual landscape, that people would ever consider sort of appealing to the devs or modding, which is where this whole conversation started, or even trying to mod it to change it to be the way that you want it to be. It just blows my mind. Now, if there were like 5 games in existence, it would make more sense to me as a course of concept, right? We've only got so much to work with, all we've got is bloody Battletoads, and so we're gonna mod the shit out of it and turn it into different games and change the experience and just create more variety. So it just boggles my mind that we have the most amazingly diverse amount of variety in gaming, and yet people still insist on changing everything about a game until it suits them. So I suppose that's the sort of core, almost paradoxical problem that I have with modding and why it's even a thing. And perhaps someone could shed some light on that. I'm not necessarily saying state your position and defend it. I'm sort of saying, as I like to say more and more on the channel, listen to learn, not listen to respond. I think a lot of people would be quick to just go, well, this is what I think. And I'm more on the sort of, well, do you fully understand what I've just said to you and my position, right? Actually, I'm not going to get the ECU, I can't be fucked. And my concerns, and, you know, sort of see how it fits. Because I know the counterpoint, you know. I understand the argument on the other side. I'm just curious if, because the point that I'm putting across, you don't really hear verbalized too often. You just hear the sort of pro-modding argument. But yeah, I'd be curious because, like, as always, I try so hard to be humble in these sort of back and forths. And if you find that maybe there is a perspective that I'm missing somehow, please do bring it to me, because I only really think and talk about these things because I want to learn and expand my personal understanding. That's another thing that's a little bit lost in the modern generation these days. I know these are broad sweeping generalizations. It's not everybody. 7.5 mil, is that actually a flat personal best? It might be. But, you know, it's not about winning. I've come across so many young blokes, even when I was in defense, because I found a lot of my peers, because I pivoted halfway through my time there to do a degree, so I ended up in with a lot of young blokes around me, and a lot of them are like, debates are about winning, and it's combative. I'm not talking about a formal actual team debate. Like, you know, I've got my position, you've got your position, and we're talking. And so many of these young blokes are just like, it is about winning. It's about, this is my position and I need to smash their position and I need to make them convert and believe what I think. And I always thought, what are you doing? It's about, here, I've got some ideas, that bloke's got some ideas, let's put them all out there, and then we'll go away and you go to sleep and you have a think about it, and maybe you integrate some of their ideas and maybe they integrate some of yours, and it's like, it's a synergetic, collaborative effort to higher understanding of a concept. Geez, we're getting pretty lofty here, aren't we? Anyway, look at that, 1 million to go. We definitely need to do some work order stuff. So, please give me a hard one, that would be nice. Look, we'll take a medium. Anyway, I'd be curious what you guys have to say, because the demographics tell me that, for the most part, my audience is in or around my age bracket, maybe a little bit younger.
Welcome to Vendatron 9000.
So I know that there's a bunch of... We've definitely got some of the old curmudgeony blokes from my time, and older still, for sure. I don't really get the... I don't get kids in my demographics. You know, if you're younger than bloody 18, you're unusual. I shouldn't say that, but you know, you're not the staple. I think 20s to 30s is my audience. So you're probably in vicinity of the exact thing that I'm talking about. Maybe some of you have observed the change in the sort of dynamic of how people debate topics these days. Maybe you're just a bit younger and you don't actually see it the way I see it. Maybe think I'm an absolute piece of shit, and I'm wrong. But I think always keep in mind that I'm coming from a place of introspective examination. I'm not tied ever to any one concept or belief, right? So you'd be hard pressed to tell me that I have some sort of agenda, or that when I say things like I feel like the younger generations or the newer generations don't, like, you know, debate in a more aggressive, antagonistic manner than what I grew up with. It's like, I'm not saying this to do anything other than make an observation. You know, there's no agenda behind it. Anyway, so this all spawned from my position on mods and creator intent. Now, oh my god, we got so little work orders. Jeez, don't press that button. Where is the power source? There. Someone suggested maybe I drill a different piece of wall further forward, like that one, for example, because this one's so expensive. I get you, I do, but also by the same token, this is a safe, clean wall, and it's not really going to be missed, value-wise. But as I have opened up the mod conversation on other videos before, I'm also very quick to say that I'm changing my position. So that my traditional position is that you don't just don't fuck with developers' intent, right? You don't fuck with the Mona Lisa. Don't fuck with someone else's game. That at its core is sort of where the thought process or thought experiment begins, right?
Salvage secured. Account applied.
But mods are different. Like I said, there's essentially meta games now that are designed where you're supposed to mod them. So that actually really changes my conversation and perspective. It sort of subdivides the motivation behind making mods. Oh, that's oh wow, because this is much easier. Cool. Yeah, I hope people don't take it personally. I'm not trying to be antagonistic or anything like that. And look, it could just come down to generational divide. I also understand that evolution is a very real thing. You know, there are things that the generation before me that did that we don't do anymore. And maybe this sort of, like, I don't want to sound disparaging because it's hard, it's really hard to sort of try and concede it. But perhaps the homogenization of individual work into like a group collaborative effort for all art and all games and that to turn them all into something similar. Maybe that's just the way the human race is going to go. You know, maybe I'm the one that's wrong, and I'm happy to explore that. But that is my main concern. Is like as soon as everyone just starts modding it to do whatever. At what point are you just going to make every single game fucking identical? Or every single art piece the same? Can we tilt this thing up? Anyway. Just a thought. But like I said, I'm coming around on mods. Because while I still think my original argument holds water about not messing with developer intent. Like I said, as the industry's grown, the reason for mods and the acceptance of mods has changed. So I'm definitely open to it. Okay, cool. Do we need coolant? We don't. What we need is electronics. It is interesting. That actually sort of spurs on to another topic now that I think about it. The homogenization of games. Because, now I know everyone hates EA. Give it a couple of years, you might not. I'm not saying I like them in their current state, but I do like to harken back to the days. I use the example, Mirror's Edge and Dead Space, if I recall correctly, released side by side. They might have even released on the same day, actually. And that was from a time where EA was willing to put a shitload of their AAA money into new IP, and both of those games respectively were absolute gangbusters. They were so good and well received, but like EA of today doesn't do that. I mean, I think they're sort of pushing a tiny little boutique sort of indie thing these days, but they're not pushing it very hard, and their main sort of AAA entries, not just EA, but most, like, I mean, shit, I love Ubisoft. I really do love Ubisoft because I enjoy the formula that they use for Assassin's Creed, but I will absolutely concede that the argument that this has led to stagnation is a very valid one, right? So they've all become kind of the same, and you know, like anyone that takes 2 seconds to have a think about it, you know why this is. It is because they are a humongous business that makes they print money more than they ever did in the earlier industry, and with that comes essentially risk. Now, what was in this? It was aluminium. We'll put this in the furnace, fuck it. the risk and the investors, there's a lot of other parties involved that aren't necessarily interested in gaming. They're interested in making money. And the safest way to make money is go with what you know. Are you dragging the other ship? You better not be. So, I mean, maybe it actually does tie in. It's actually interesting. It's all very conservative in sort of concept and execution. Dare I say the want to mod games to fit your style. Say you're the shit hottest modder in the planet, and you mod all these games, right? And you've basically gotten to a point where, I don't know, you add a mod where everyone has a big square head or something, and every single game that releases, you put that mod into it, you know? Like, it is a pretty, it's not very adventurous, it's not new, you're just making every game, you know, a pseudo sequel to the last one. And, is that what we want? I don't know. But yeah, I have concerns about the AAA space, and how do you fix that? That's the other thing. I don't know how do you stop the Assassin's Creeds from being identical each time? It's a good question. Now, obviously, actually, Assassin's Creed is a good example, because they were churning them out really hard. You go back like a generation now, a gaming generation. What the fuck was that? That's unfair. I had my hands out. And you have a look at what they did, which is they like took a year off to make Origins. And Origins was a huge departure. Like, it's actually a bit of a success story and a good indication, and probably why you should think about, you know, not thinking of Ubisoft as a bad guy. A good example of them legitimately trying something different, yet sort of still staying true. So it's got a lot of the staples of Assassin's Creed still in it, but they really shook it up. They changed it a lot. And all of this was, like, imagine being one of these huge businesses. I know I'm sort of defending them. It's more that I'm devil's advocate, because it's easier to just go, loot boxes bad, AAA game companies greedy. But maybe if you have just a think about it, they've got so many interested parties and so much money tied up in them, you can't just radically change the formula when the business is sort of at that too big to fail stage, you know? Even think outside of the fact that you don't like that the games are sort of
salvage deposit accepted, credits transferred,
samey, right? And not taking risk. Do you know how many people's jobs and livelihoods you risk by changing that? Like, they're a humongous company. The amount of people that will lose their jobs, or not to mention potentially, life savings, investments. If the Assassin's Creed property suddenly announced that they're doing something radically different overnight, the stock price of Ubisoft will plummet, you know? Real money will get lost. I'm not just saying it's for fat cats, I'm saying it's everybody at every level of the sort of company. So, like, and I'm not saying that's where I sort of come down on it. I'm just sort of saying there's perspective to be considered. That they have created a situation where these companies are so lucrative that there's so many invested parties, and they are in fact too big to fail. And when I say that, as in, I mean that they just can't be allowed to fail. It'd be catastrophic to so many human beings. So then that's an argument on the other side to why you have to keep making samey games on a same sort of timeline. Work order complete, baby. You know what? Just for a giggle, I'll even harvest a bloody thruster for you guys. So it's a bit of an impossible situation that you can't really fix. And I think to say, no, just do it. Just change it. Just stop making it like that. Just get rid of loot boxes, for example. Just change it and bad luck. I think that that sort of mentality comes from incredibly, I'll say naive, but you just haven't taken the time to think about all the involved parties. And I'm not just saying the big rich dudes at the top. So like, it's an interesting situation. How do you fix it? Because you can't change it radically. So maybe you have to change it over time, conceptually. You have to have a culture shift, perhaps. But it is interesting in my lifetime, and not even like on a long span, seeing EA go from investments like Mirror's Edge and Dead Space to a point where, you know, they're now this super hated, super homogenous corporate entity that is like, to, you know, for me to even just trying to defend anything from them, there are people that just will hate your guts for that. And it's like, wow, that's weird. The other thing about loot boxes, I think loot boxes get a bad rap. I get, it's sort of like blaming the guy who invented gambling for how bad gambling is. Like, do you really know that? Like, I don't know the story on gambling, right? But let's just say hypothetically, a dude's like, oh well, yeah, I guess we could put money down and wager a chance. You know, insurance, these sort of investment risk concepts. The person who pioneers them in the first sort of instance isn't necessarily going to see how, like, who could have predicted how prolific gambling and in turn even loot boxes would have been. I think loot boxes were an incredibly unique and clever way to monetize a product. Like, even think about it on paper. It's like, oh, well, you know, you could put money in and you could get bloody cosmetics or something like that, and, you know. And even when loot boxes were starting to exist, kids stealing their mum and dad's credit card wasn't the problem that it is today, you know. It'd be like, oh, well, there'd be a thing there. Maybe they were even aiming at the 1% upper clientele, you know. And then it turned into this absolute bloody money-making machine, and it definitely got away from the original creators. And I've said this before, like, EA rode that pony too long. You know, so I am with everyone on the final sort of verdict that EA kind of, they should have seen the writing on the wall sooner and how much the bad press was affecting them. But I mean, it's almost like, consider the hypothetical. You know, when people are like, oh yeah, how much money to kill that person? Or, you know, how much money to do something sexually naughty that I won't talk about that might be outside of your usual food group, you know? And the thing is, most people, if we're being honest, in that hypothetical, you're cracking a few beers with the boys and you're cracking out jokes, most people have a price. It might be $10 billion, right? But there is enough money. So you got to wonder, while loot boxes were so bad for EA in the public image and all that, they were making more money than anyone could have ever comprehended. And like, while I'm not defending it per se, I am being empathetic and sort of understanding. If you had this money printing press, how hard do you ride that pony? And the point is, there is a line, and the line's different for everyone. And I truly think for the amount of money they were making versus the bad press they were getting, and the fact that they weren't stopping ever, never put brakes on loot boxes, that just indicates to you that all the people involved were probably like, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. We might not agree, but they did. They thought that. Anyway, just a thought. Another little bit of a rant there, team. But I'd be curious what people have to say, because it's a shame when the discussion around mods and all that. Like, I know I have some dissenting opinions, but I don't think it should be. All I'm doing is considering things from the other side of the fence and just trying to get inside other people's heads and see what they think. So I'd be curious what people think. Anyway, we're very, very close to getting full certification. Look at that. We got the money. We just have to do essentially one more run, and then from there, boo, it's just grind on the debt, and then it opens up the floodgates to the new series that will run parallel, and I'll do the hardcore mode as well. Team, let me know what you reckon. Any thoughts on the rant? Might just leave it there for the time being, and I will catch you guys on the next one.